everybody's goal is to get to Hoover. I mean, that's the Omaha of the SEC, and obviously this is a really fun tournament.
And that's exactly where the Alabama baseball team is this week. Crimson Tide working out at Regions Park today as they get set to open play against Arkansas tomorrow morning at 9:30 in the SEC tournament. And we open our show right now.
Go inside the Crimson Tide. Tider Insider TV with Rodney Orr and Gary Harris.
And here we go with news tonight on Tider Insider TV involving the legendary Joe Namath. Joe Willie back in Tuscaloosa this week. Namath touring the tornado damage that was so prevalent because of the April 27th tornado, visiting folks, talking with reporters, saying he wanted to see the destruction for himself and that his heart aches for the folks that have suffered so dramatically. We'll hear more from Namath later on in the television program. But first, news off the field for Alabama football. Demetrius Good saying goodbye to the Crimson Tide. Good is transferring to North Alabama, where he'll be eligible to play immediately because the UNA Lions are a Division II school. Rodney, Alabama had a lot of depth there. He's a good football player. We know that. Did he just get caught up in a numbers crunch there? Is that why he's moving on?
You know, Gary, early in his career, when he first got here, he had that knee injury, if you remember, and I don't think he ever really got back in the flow necessarily. I don't mean it was the injury, but he just kind of, you know, things started piling up. Running backs, you had Glenn Coffey, then you had Mark Ingram and Trent Richardson, and so his numbers were limited in terms of carries. But as you mentioned, Gary, he is really a very good back and should do a great job at UNA. So,
but from a numbers standpoint, Alabama's still in good shape.
Absolutely, absolutely. You know, you look at Trent Richardson, obviously, then you have Eddie Lacy, D. Hart, and Justin Fowler, so they're going to be just fine.
And those are just a few of the stories we're talking about tonight on Tider Insider TV alongside Rodney Orr from TiderInsider.com. I'm Gary Harris. Our program presented each week by Buffalo Rock. Once again tonight, ice cold Diet Pepsi. I love that sound. Well, the Alabama basketball team has been in the news for the past week or so as Coach Anthony Grant continues to build a recruiting class that he hopes eventually will take Alabama to a place it's never been, the Final Four. The latest addition, or one of the latest additions, certainly arguably the biggest addition to the class, came last Wednesday in Huntsville.
I just signed with the University of Alabama.
That's Trevor Lacey, the 6'4", 190-pound shooting guard from Butler High School in Huntsville. He won 3 state championships there under Jack Doss. Last Wednesday, he ended months of speculation, announcing that he had signed with the University of Alabama. Lacey's considered a 5-star recruit by a number of the recruiting services. He had narrowed it down to Alabama, Auburn, Kansas, and Kentucky. At one time, he thought he was going to UK, but in the end, he went with the Tide because of his relationship with Anthony Grant.
It was just, I felt like it was home. I developed a great relationship with Coach Grant and the players, and have a good friend of Levi going there, and I felt comfortable with. School welcomed me when I came, and I just felt like I didn't want to leave. But when I, really thought about it, it wasn't no point in leaving the state.
He's a small Magic Johnson. There's nothing he can't do on the floor, and you want the ball in his hands. And he's so unselfish that, if he can't get the basket, he's going to get to somebody that can.
Jack Doss has seen some of the best players in this state, coached some of them, the likes of Buck Johnson and others. And when he says that about Trevor Lacey, it carries some weight. And a really good player and part of a great recruiting class. 6 players coming in to play in 2011-2012. Lacey signed last week, as did point guard Ratine Ojimo from over in the Netherlands. He is a 6'1", 205-pound point guard physical. Now, early signees, Levi Randolph from Madison Central, good friends with Lacey, about 6'6", can shoot it. The same can be said for Rodney Cooper from down in Phoenix City. He is a guy that's about 6'5", 6'6", long shooter. Nick Jacobs, well, he gives you that low post presence, 6'8", about 255 out of Atlanta. And Musa Gai, kind of the wild card, a 7-foot center from junior college in Illinois, originally from the continent of Africa. He is an excellent prospect in terms of his size and his athleticism. But Rodney, when we talk about basketball recruiting, this is a top 5 top class, but let's begin with Trevor Lacey. I had said several times on this program, Alabama was going to be fine with or without Lacey, but he's certainly the cherry on top. Now, I like to think I'm not into hyperbole. Every now and then I'll get a little hyped up, but I do think from a basketball standpoint, his signing, what it means to Anthony Grant, and potentially what he'll do for the team is as important as it was when Nick Saban got here and signed Julio Jones. I think he's the basketball equivalent of Julio Jones for a lot of reasons, perception being right now the #1 reason.
Well, you know, there's been a lot of great players that have come out of the state of Alabama. Gerald Wallace won a few years ago. Obviously, Mark Godfrey landed him. He was a big recruit. But when you're talking about Trevor Lacey, Gary, you're talking about a guy that kind of seems like on that level when Bobby Lee Hurt, Enos Watley signed 1982 class. That class was #5 in the country. So, again, he kind of has that kind of aura about him in terms of his name and reputation.
Yeah, certainly Wallace was voted by some the National Player of the Year, a great player. But for what Anthony Grant's trying to do right now, he made a statement when he got Lacey, because even though everybody knew he had a good relationship with him, I think most people felt like in the end that lure of John Calipari in Kentucky, you know, the Big Blue, one and done, Final Four, would be too much to overcome. But he held off Kentucky, he held off the in-state rival Auburn, he held off Bill Self in Kansas that made a late push. Even Mark Godfrey in North Carolina State came in on him late. So huge pickup in this Alabama basketball program next year. Could be something special, because freshmen, as we know, make a huge impact in college basketball if they're really good players. And he and Randolph and Cooper and some of the others certainly are. Well, still to come on TITV, Rodney will have his football recruiting roundup. Nobody keeps it going in football recruiting like this guy. He'll have it coming up later. But up next, the Crimson Tide community continues to help in the tornado relief efforts taking place in Tuscaloosa. Today it was Joe Namath. Last week, Nick Saban lending a hand. Both of those stories are on the way. And also your questions and comments. We will get to you. The phone number 205-348-WVUA. That's 348-9882. Or email us if you'd like at TITV@WVUATV.com. Tider Insider TV, we're just getting cranked up. Stay with us. We'll be back right after this. As we showed you at the top of the show, University of Alabama football legend Joe Namath in Tuscaloosa today, touring the damage left by the April 27th tornado. He spent time with the people who survived the storm. Mayor Walt Maddox said Namath made a significant donation as well to help with the recovery efforts in Tuscaloosa and West Alabama. I mean, look at that, getting out there with the people. What a great guy. Namath said he wants to help rebuild Tuscaloosa because it helped shape him into the man that he is today.
Another location,
We need to stay positive, and that's what the mayor and his team's doing, and that's what we're going to do here in Tuscaloosa. The folks that are lending a hand and doing everything they can to help get this fine town and the residents that have suffered back on their feet. We're going to inspire the effort and work shoulder to shoulder, man, just to get us back. You know, this is a time that our faith may be tested. You wonder why we go through these kind of things, but this is also the time we've got to stay strong with the good Lord and believe we're going to come back here.
Well, last Friday, Alabama football head coach Nick Saban and other members of the Bama family reached out to tornado survivors in Holt. WVUA's Candace Murphy has more on how Coach Saban is helping out with the recovery efforts.
You just can't be a team in the best of times. You also have to be a team in the worst of times.
That's the message Coach Nick Saban tells his players on the field. And even though what's happened here is definitely not a game, the message still fits.
When we have players that have issues and problems, we want to support them and help them every way we can. When we have people in the community that, you know, need our help and support, we want to do that every way we can.
Coach Nick and Terry Saban's organization, Nick's Kids, is joining forces with Project Team Up to help rebuild Holt emotionally and physically.
It helps a lot of other people, and it can lead to a lot of other people trying to help other people. So, you know, and that's the whole concept of Team Up.
Project Team Up is building their foundation on this slab, which used to be a home. They are taking a tragedy and turning it into an opportunity for those in need. The Rowe family was in the hallway of what used to be their home when the tornado ripped it away from them.
It was scary, but
yeah,
it was God.
Like
you could tell God was here right then and there, because everybody just run to help everybody get out their house.
Even with the painful memories of destruction, they want to rebuild on the same foundation.
God spared us. That's a memory that I want to keep.
We could move, like you said, to other areas, but this is home. You know, and the Lord has blessed us to stay here. Why move?
Tuscaloosa Mayor Walt Maddox said he has never been more proud.
we refused as a community to let that tornado define us. What people are going to remember Tuscaloosa for is how we came back, how we showed our resiliency, how we showed our compassion, and how we showed that we will never quit in the face of adversity.
Make something happen and make it happen and finish it.
In this case, the goal is to make something bigger and better happen in Holt. Reporting in Tuscaloosa County, Candace Murphy, WVUA News.
Thank you, Candace. Project Team Up wants to remind everyone out there are no competitors when it comes to helping neighbors in need. Coach Saban is encouraging others to form groups like Project Team Up to help rebuild communities across the state of Alabama. Coming up, the Crimson Tide baseball team gets set to begin the postseason while the Bama softball squad is 2 wins away from the College World Series, plus your phone calls and emails coming up later on in the program. Again, there's the number to get in touch with us, 205-348-9882. Tider Insider TV will continue right after this.
Our pitching staff has really been the key to get us to this point, and but it's a real team. I think you can look at our group, no real superstars in it, but we play the game well. We don't beat ourselves, and we put ourselves in a lot of opportunities to move on and win ball games.
Crimson Tide baseball coach Mitch Gaspar talking about what he calls his scrappy baseball team. The Crimson Tide doesn't hit a lot of home runs. In fact, they've only hit 19. That's the lowest total in the Southeastern Conference. What they do is they play defense, they get quality starting pitching, and they battle all the way to the end, and they win their share of baseball games. They're hoping to win a few over in Hoover. And keep in mind, folks, that Alabama has a great history at the SEC tournament. They've won 7 tournament titles, and even last year when they came in as a low seed, they made it to the championship game against LSU. Alabama will open play in the SEC tournament against Arkansas 9:30 tomorrow morning, so it'll be bright and early. Our Todd Hoyer and John Huddleston will be there for the tournament tomorrow, and we'll have complete coverage tomorrow night at 5 and 6. Well, the Crimson Tide softball team is just 2 wins away from playing in the College World Series. Of course, we saw last year that you got to win those 2 games. They didn't do it against Hawaii. This past weekend, they breezed through the regional, outscoring 3 opponents by combined 26-3. Stanford comes in here, a quality softball team, but Alabama, I think, is on a mission, particularly after what happened last year at home against Hawaii. Look for the Tide to get it done against the Cardinal and get back to Oklahoma City. Now let me bring back in Rodney Orr for our football recruiting update, and we got some hot prospects. I mean, every week we come up here and there are names that continue to be brought out on your website that are not just good prospects, but outstanding prospects. Let's start with a big defensive end out of Cincinnati, Ohio. He's on Alabama's radar, and Alabama's on his radar as well.
Yep, Adolphus Washington, Gary. A lot of people thought he was locked up for Ohio State. I talked to Coach Mike Martin today, in fact, the high school coach at Taft, and he said, no way. Alabama's definitely in there, has a lot of interest. Now, let me give you a little something here that's about Adolphus that a lot of people don't know. His cousin is Alfred McCullough, the offensive lineman here at Alabama. So he has a connection here. All of his father's side of the family is from the state of Alabama, so certainly that doesn't hurt Alabama's chances.
Well, while we're in Cincinnati, let's take a look at another really good prospect. I mean, these tall, athletic wide receivers, Dwayne Stanford, could use a few pounds, but he can go get the ball.
Yeah, but let me tell you, he looks thin there, and he is thin, no question about it. But when you look at him, you can see he's got the ability, Gary, to fill out. And he's a pretty physical guy for his size in terms of the weight, but he's a good-looking player. He's on the same team as Adolphus Washington there at Taft High School. Alabama, again, getting serious consideration. These guys have several offers. I'm talking Michigan, Ohio State, Notre Dame, those types of schools. So Alabama's in the top 5 for Adolphus Washington. I don't know if Stanford has officially narrowed anything down yet or not, but both are expected to take unofficial visits here to Alabama probably sometime this summer.
One of the most interesting prospects in this class, this upcoming class for 2012, one of the best players in the country, is Russell Shell, the running back out of Aliquippa, Pennsylvania. I mean, he can go just practically anywhere he wants to go. But Alabama has cultivated that running back tradition, and he's very interested in the Tide.
That's a good point about the running back tradition, Gary. Russell Shell, and he is a great back. I tell you, if you go on YouTube, punch up youtube.com, punch in his name, you look at him, you think you're looking at Mark Ingram, but faster. I mean, he is a talent. He's ran for over 6,700 yards in the past 3 years, and Alabama's certainly one of the schools that's very strongly in the mix. Schools coast to coast. There had been some rumor that Alabama, Florida, Florida State, Oregon, and Pitt were his top 5, but he won't say that officially. In fact, he doesn't talk much. But again, keep an eye on Russell Shell. Same high school as Tony Dorsett.
How about that? He might put up similar numbers wherever he goes to college. All right, it's hard to think that you'll find a better-looking quarterback prospect than Gunnar Kiel. Now, the interesting thing about him, you recognize the last name. You should. His uncle, Blair Kiel, great player at Notre Dame. You would think he's ticketed for the Irish, but not so fast, my friend.
No, in fact, I think Alabama's in great shape for Gunnar Kiel. When will he make his decision? I don't know. We've talked about that a lot on TiderInsider.com. Alabama, Oklahoma rumored to be the top two. Again, I think Alabama's in really good shape here with Gunnar Kiel. He likes Alabama a lot and vice versa. And also might mention, of course, just right down the road at Hueytown, Jameis Winston's right there in Gunnar Kiel's category in terms of quarterback ability. So, again, those are two of the top quarterbacks in the country. Alabama could conceivably get both of those guys.
Yeah, Tide definitely looking to sign a couple of quarterbacks in this class. That's Rodney's weekly recruiting update. For much more, you can go to TiderInsider.com. Those updates available and the latest on some of the nation's other top prospects, plenty of whom are considering the Alabama Crimson Tide. All right, let's go to the phones. First up tonight, our good buddy CB. CB, you got your ears on there, buddy?
Yes, sir, brother. Roll Tide. Let's go baseball team. We just need a key hit or a bunt down, and it ain't against the law to hit the first pitch. Take advice from an old fat man. Let's roll Tide and win in the morning.
Well, you know, CB, we talked about it earlier. This is a baseball team that doesn't have a lot of power, Rodney. 19 home runs as a team. I remember one year in Jim Wells had 4 players hit over 20 by themselves, but when they hit over 100 home runs in a season. But it's a different game now. This ballpark, though, is advantageous for Alabama, not just because they're comfortable there. It's a big ballpark. You're not going to hit many home runs anyway, even the good power teams. So you've got to put the ball in play. They play good defense, hit and run, move some guys around. If the pitching holds up, they got a chance to go deep. They're always a threat when they get to that tournament, CD. I think history has proven that. Let's go to Fayette and talk with Gary. Gary, what's going on, buddy?
Fine. I'd like to know about TJ Yeldon out of Daphne.
Well, Gary, TJ, first of all, he's a super player. I mean, he's a great athlete, could play running back, and I know he's a fantastic running back, has offers from a lot of schools around the country. And he could play safety as well. He's got that kind of versatility. If you ask me where he's going, I really don't know right now. Talking to some of the coaches down there on that staff, they think he'll probably stay in state, Alabama or Auburn. Again, we'll see. Alabama's in on so many guys. I mean, so it's hard to say exactly, who they're going to end up with. But TJ Yeldon certainly a very, very good prospect.
Yeah, and already 12 commitments too. So
yep.
I mean, those spots are starting to get tight already for Alabama. All right, more of your phone calls and emails when we come back here on Tider Insider TV. Welcome back to TITV. More phone calls in a moment. First time to talk to you about the locker room. They are outfitting us again tonight with original elephant wear. It's available at the locker room. These dress shirts, you can get ties, pullovers, T-shirts, pants, shorts, much more. Original Elephant Wear has taken Tuscaloosa by storm, and the locker room is the place to get it. A Tuscaloosa tradition for 46 years. Home of the Original Elephant Wear, located on the University Strip near the University of Alabama. Just stop in Monday through Saturday or check them out online as well, www.locker-room.biz. Go by and tell them that Gary and Rodney sent you. Get hooked up with some of this original elephant wear. Okay, let's go back to the phones. Rick is waiting in Bluff Park. Rick, go ahead. I know you got a number of players, so go ahead and get started.
Hey, fellas, how y'all doing? I enjoy your show. Enjoy your show.
Thank you.
Two players from Georgia, James DeLoach and Jonathan Taylor. Are they going to be a package type deal?
Yes, that's what their coach, Chris Conley, had told me, that they would be a package deal. Again, DeLoach is a defensive end, and Taylor is a great nose tackle prospect, a really big kid. So, and Alabama's in the mix very strongly. DeLoach is originally a native of the state of Alabama, so that kind of gives Alabama a little bit of an edge there.
And Rodney, I think Rick's got a couple more players. Rick, go ahead.
Okay, two linebackers, Channing Ward and Jordan Jenkins.
Yeah.
I appreciate you taking my call.
Hey,
Thanks, Rick.
They're both great players, obviously. Channing Ward from the state of Mississippi and Aberdeen. Alabama's kind of made up some ground on Channing lately. Again, when you're talking about that area, Mississippi State's pretty strong there, and I know they've been really strong with Channing Ward. You remember Fernando Davis, the former Alabama linebacker, and he was from Aberdeen, Mississippi, so certainly there's some ties there. But Channing Ward, again, a great player. Alabama has made up some ground. Jordan Jenkins is a tremendous player, too. He's got offers from several schools in the SEC and around the country. So we're going to have to kind of see how that pans out. Alabama's certainly been in the mix. I know Georgia doesn't want to lose him from that state, Gary. They've lost a lot of guys from that state. So You know, and I know they kind of shut it down a little bit this year, but Alabama's already got 6 commitments from the class of 2012 from the state of Georgia. So a lot of pressure on Mark Richt to keep those guys in state.
All right, let's move on. Let's get to an email from Emily in Hoover. Wants to know about the Tide's chances with the great wide receiver, Dorial Green Beckham. And this is a guy a lot of people are saying Julio Jones Part 2, but you know, he's out of the Midwest there in Missouri, but Alabama's in the mix strong.
Well, I'll tell you, Emily, Dorial Green Beckham is a great player, 6'6", 220, #1 player in the country according to most people. And I think Alabama's chances are really, really good with Dorial Green Beckham at this point. Again, it's a long process. He's being recruited by everybody in the country. So Alabama's going to have to stay on top of him. But I do think I'll step out a little bit and say, I think Alabama may have the lead on Dorial Green Beckham right now. But again, we're talking about, you know, late May. It's a long way to go.
Still, you heard it right here from the man, Rodney Orr. Tide looking good with the nation's top player. Well, coming up, Marcel Darius, Julio Jones, and Mark Ingram together again. We'll have that story when Tider Insider TV returns. Mark Ingram, Julio Jones, and Marcel Darius together again recently, but wearing different uniforms. Check it out. They were in Los Angeles for the rookie football card shoot, all sporting their new NFL unis. Kind of brings things full circle for these guys. A few years ago, they were buying trading cards. Now they're on one.
You get a couple players, and then you kind of see yourself like, I can put myself on the side of them now that I got my own card, so it's kind of crazy and overwhelming.
When we went to the store, my mom would always buy me a little pack, so just to finally know that I have my own card and people will be going to buy a pack and they'll pull my card is a blessing.
You know, it's exciting to see those cards. You know, you don't know what to expect. You open the box up and like, oh, wow.
Ingram, Jones, Darius, all now with their own trading cards. The two skilled guys trying their best with one of those model smiles, while the big man sticking with the intense look. Hey, that's going to do it for the show tonight. It's dinner time tonight. Rodney and I and the rest of the crew heading over to the Pottery Grill in Northport. Hey, folks, come on out and join us for dinner. We've been having a lot of people at our table. We'll squeeze you in out there at the Pottery Grill. For Rodney Orr, I'm Gary Harris. Thanks for watching TITV. We'll see you again next week. Have a good night.